Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. Yes, you have read the title correctly. For the first time ever in this channel, we are going to be diving into the latest season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Oh my goodness! Now, some of you guys may already know, but I started watching Drag Race for the very first time only last year in August, September time. Like, that period of late summer was consumed by Drag Race for me. Okay, I binge watched all 14 seasons that were out at that time. I also watched all of the All-Star seasons. I watched all of the UK seasons. Like, I was in this. Okay, and I have become obsessed with this franchise, as so many people are and have been for many years. But I'm just jumping on board right now, and I'm so excited to be a part of this party because it's really opened my eyes to a whole different culture that I have become obsessed with. So it brings me great joy to be able to offer up my thoughts on the latest season of RuPaul's Drag Race season 15. We are going to be diving into my thoughts on the season overall, each of the queens, as well as of course the season finale where we got to see the latest Drag Race winner be crowned. So I can't wait to dive into all of that good stuff, guys. But before we do, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. But in the meantime, we have a ton to dive into. Let's discuss RuPaul's Drag Race season 15. Okay, so the way that I think I'm going to structure this, since this is the first time I'm reviewing a Drag Race season, I think I'm going to dive into my overall thoughts on season 15 first of all, as I said before, and then I'm going to touch on each of the queens of season 15 really quickly, just to give you guys my quick thoughts on them. And then we're going to take a bit of a break, a bit of a hiatus, where you guys get to see my favorite looks of season 15 before we dive into the finale, the top 4 queens, and of course the winner of the season. I think that's a pretty good structure to stick to, so let's dive into this. Okay, so when it comes to my overall thoughts on season 15 of Drag Race, as someone who has recently binge watched all of the seasons of Drag Race so far, I have to say that season 15 was a very good season of the show. It definitely wasn't in like the top 5 history making category, but I think it was pretty decent. I mean, first of all, we need to address the fact that Drag Race is now on MTV instead of, I think, VH1 as it was beforehand. But the major difference that did come with this was, of course, the change in runtime, because MTV decided to play with us. MTV decided that they wanted to promote another show after Drag Race, so they would decrease the runtime of Drag Race to do so. And this show, what was it called? Real Housewives of WeHo? What was the show? That show was dragged for filth, not only because it was trash, but because it also interrupted our Drag Race, okay? It interrupted our Drag Race programming, and no one was a fan of that. So thankfully, MTV got their wits about them and decided to change things back to the 90-minute episodes midway through the season, which I appreciated. I like the fact that they rectified that during season 15 instead of waiting until the next season, because that would have just been so annoying. I mean, the shortened episodes were so jarring. It just felt like something was off. It felt like we didn't get any time with the queens. I didn't really get to know any of them. I mean, a lot of the queens that were around in the earlier episodes, like, they're still mysteries to me and to us as audiences, because we just did not have enough time with them. And it's bad enough that producers be editing, okay? It's bad enough that producers be picking their favorites and editing out other queens, but now with the 1 hour runtime, it was just made even worse. And I think another problem with the shorter episodes was the fact that we got less RuPaul this season. Like, it felt like we didn't really get a chance to see RuPaul interacting with the girls. We didn't really get a chance to see the judges judge. Like, truly, like, in the shorter episodes, we didn't get the judge deliberations, so we didn't hear what the judges' considerations were when RuPaul made her final decision. Like, it was a bit of a disaster, honestly. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking, but the show that they they sacrificed Drag Race for wasn't even worth it in the end. So it was just a huge mess, and I'm glad that they fixed it when they were supposed to, because we couldn't have made it through an entire season of this nonsense. And I know that there were people who were like, oh, but they had 1 hour episodes in the earlier seasons. Sis, like, we're not in the earlier seasons anymore. Like, listen, I watched the earlier seasons, okay, and you can't really tell the difference because they are filmed in the way that is structured for a 1 hour episode. But when it comes to season 15, it was clear that it wasn't filmed in that way originally, so it just ended up feeling rushed. It felt like they edited it to feel like a 1 hour episode, but it wasn't originally intended to be that, and so it just felt mismatched and really rushed. And regardless, at the end of the day, because we are so used to the 90-minute episodes now, it's tough for us to reel it back in. Like, it's tough, like, you gave us so much, it's tough for us to accept less now. Okay, so next, when it comes to my thoughts on the overall season, I was also glad that there were less shenanigans and less mischief on production's part, to a certain extent. Okay, listen, coming off of season 14, okay, where it was Shenanigans Central, I was actually rewatching season 14 concurrently to season 15 because I always got sad when the season 15 episodes ended, so I was like, okay, let's watch the season 14 episode. And that season just had so many shenanigans. It had so many MacGuffins, so many production, you know, tomfooleries. Like, I was like, season 14 was crazy. And of course, we can't forget the big one. We can't forget the biggest offender of all. The chocolate.
It's chocolate. It's just chocolate. It's chocolate. It's chocolate. It is chocolate.
I'm so glad they got rid of that. I'm so glad they got rid of the dumb chocolate bar. It was so clearly a MacGuffin of tomfoolery. It was so clearly production, you know, playing around, you know, pulling the strings behind the scenes and even in front of the camera. Like, it was so clearly stupid as hell. And I'm glad they got rid of the chocolate bars this season, honestly. But season 14 had a ton of those like tomfooleries where people were staying. There was a whole stretch of like 10 episodes where no one went home. So I'm glad that season 15 established, like, from the jump, okay? It sent home what many consider to be a favourite, Irene Dubois, in the very first episode. And that was really shocking. We were all expecting her to come back at some point, but season 15 was like, nah, we're taking it back to the roots, okay? When people go home, they stay home. And I think that was a good decision on some part, especially because after season 14, we were all tired of the nonsense. But on the other hand, I do feel like at least season 14 is remembered for having the nonsense, whereas season 15, you know, in terms of the challenges and in terms of people getting sent home and all of that, like, there's not a lot that I feel like will be remembered from this season. So I don't know, it's a double-edged sword. Like, we all cuss out production when they play their hand, show their tomfoolery on screen, but at the same time, that's what kind of makes it fun and entertaining. And so without that, it's kind of like, I don't know, just a tiny bit bland. And on top of that, you know, the shortened season certainly didn't help. I feel like season 15 definitely suffered in some accounts from the lack of creativity on production's part. And speaking of lack of creativity, another reason why I think season 15 doesn't really stand out as a legendary season is because of the lack of creativity in the challenges as well. We didn't really have a ton of like brand new challenges. Not many of the challenges really stood out to me. Even the ones that were newer, like this idea of having, you know, the girls split up and they had to interview different people, like, that was a newer challenge. I don't know if we've seen that before, but it was something kind of fresh as an idea. But I don't know, the execution was just a little bit like meh and bland. Perhaps that was because it was a shortened episode as well, so that certainly didn't help. But I don't know, I just didn't feel like this season had a ton of extremely memorable challenges that people will be referring to for years to come. I feel like for the most part, the challenges were pretty standard and pretty straightforward, and I think the execution was also pretty standard. I mean, even a Drag Race staple like the Snatch game ended up being pretty underwhelming, with only Lucy LaDuca really giving a standout performance this season. And so for my final thoughts on the overall season before we dive into the individual queens, I kind of have to say this, guys. Warning, unpopular opinion coming through. To quote Mistress Isabel Brooks, guys, I kind of got tired of the Sasha Colby meet and greet experience. I'm so sorry. Listen, okay? I'm not a Sasha hater by any stretch of the imagination. Don't try me, okay? Do not try me. There's nuance here, yeah? I am a big fan of Sasha. I didn't really know about her prior to this series because I'm a Drag Race fan, but I'm not like a drag sort of follower. So I'm only being introduced to this world through Drag Race, as many people are in the world. And so I didn't really know about Sasha's like legendary status in the drag world. But learning about it and seeing it and seeing clips on YouTube, I've come to really respect her and respect her craft. So yeah, I do really admire Sasha's ability to like perform, and has been performing for many years. She's a pro, she's a mother, okay, she's all of those things, and I respect it and admire it. But after watching like 16 episodes of Drag Race season 15, after going through 16 weeks of this series, I have to say, you know, I was just a little bit tired. And here's the thing, this isn't just with Sasha, okay? I feel this way whenever Drag Race does this, when it anoints a winner way before the finale. I felt this way with All Star 7 with Jinx. I know. Today I am making enemies, I know. But guys, I just really don't like it when Drag Race makes it so blatantly obvious that there is one queen in particular that's going home with the crown from day one. From the jump, okay? They have anointed that queen. It pisses me off. I'm sorry. It pisses me off because then the whole season is about editing that queen to make her look perfect, to make her look faultless. And that's what happened in All Star 7 with Jinx, where there will be times where like the Vivian or Monet like clearly just did better, like clearly. There were times where I felt like I was taking crazy pills, like, am I insane, or did the Vivian not win that challenge? Did Monet not clearly win that lip sync? Like, am I crazy? And I hate that. I hate when the show gaslights me into thinking that their anointed winner is clearly the best of the best, even in rounds or even in challenges where they are clearly not. It pisses me off. And so there were several times where this happened in season 15 where like they obviously decided from jump that Sasha was going to win. They had this whole iconic arc for her where she's your favorite drag queen's favorite drag queen, and they set about proving that throughout the whole season. And I think that's great and that's excellent, and clearly she's an amazing drag queen. I'm not trying to take anything away from her. Like, who am I to do that, okay? Who am I to do that? No one. But if we could just give some of these other queens the ounce of dignity and respect that they're giving Sasha, please, if we could just share that, if we just share the love, that's all I'm asking. It was definitely giving rigor mortis to me, I'm sorry to say. We'll dive into the challenges later on when we talk about the top 4, but there were some challenges where I was like, Sasha didn't win that. You might have given her the win, but she didn't actually win. But yeah, we'll talk about it in a second. But first of all, let's dive into some of the other queens from season 15. Okay, so now I'm going to give you guys my quick thoughts on each of the queens. We're going to go in the order of when they were eliminated. So we're starting off with Irene Dubois. Now, like I said, I don't really have a lot of exposure to these queens in the real world. I'm just going off of their appearance on the show. And we didn't really get a chance to see much of Irene in the first episode. But from what we saw, she seemed really sassy. She seemed really, you know, quippy and kind of bitchy, honestly. But I have seen, you know, on Pit Stop and on the Sibling Rivalry, which I always listen to, with Bob the Drag Queen and Monet Exchange, where they mentioned how she has this like air of like a classic drag queen that is kind of bitchy and is kind of snippy. And so I respect her for that, you know, if that is her personality and that is in line with the culture. nothing but respect from me. What I really liked about her was her drag. I felt like her drag was really elevated visually. She had that kind of sort of fairy, alien, nymph kind of aesthetic that she tended to circle around. And I also saw some of the looks that she had brought for the later challenges and the later episodes, and her drag just seems so gorgeous and so elevated. So if anything, I was really sad that we didn't get a chance to see her looks each episode, because they were absolutely out of this world, and she would have killed on the runway every single time. From what I saw, every single Irene, she spent money on those looks. I'm so sad that she ended up going in the first episode. It was such a shame. Okay, so next up, the complete opposite of Irene Dubois, we have Princess Poppy, who, no shade, okay, no shade to this queen. All of these queens deserve nothing but respect for doing what they do, especially in this here world. Especially in this here world, okay? When it comes to Princess Poppy, I would say her drag was less remarkable, and oftentimes I tended to confuse her with Amethyst. So that pretty much tells you everything you need to know about my thoughts on Princess Poppy. Was she the one that came out dressed as another drag queen for the reunion? With the yellow? Was she the one with the yellow on? The yellow top? I can't remember. Let me know down in the comments. But if she was the one that came out in the, yellow top as like a reference to another drag queen from before, and she said that I quit, then that's fun. Okay, I think she did a really good job with that reference. But that's pretty much the only look that I remember her for. So, not great. Next, we have Sugar. So let's just dive into the twins here then, I guess. So we had Sugar and Spice make an appearance as the first twins of Drag Race. I think it is incredible that you have these two queens that are twins. I am never gonna get over this. I remember seeing their videos pop up on YouTube Shorts like last year, and I was like, oh my god, are they twins? I love that so much. I think it's incredible. They look so similar, and they're both into drag, and they have like the kind of opposite sort of feel to their drag, with Spice being a little bit darker, a little bit more mysterious, and not gothic, but like a bit more punk, and Sugar being, the sweet innocent princess type of figure. Like that whole branding that they've come up with is so clever, so effective, and I really enjoyed their aesthetic. But when it came to their appearance on Drag Race, I just don't think they were ready. I don't think they were cooked enough. We needed to let them cook a little bit longer, okay? I know that they applied themselves, but they really needed to allow themselves to mature in their drag for a little bit longer in order to progress with the series further, because this is a competition. You're going up against a lot of really seasoned drag queens, even if they are getting younger and younger as the seasons go on, and so some of these other drag queens are just a bit more well-rounded when it comes to their performances, their talents, their sewing, their their ability to put on a show, their ability to tell jokes, and think on their feet. Like, some of these other queens have that talent because of practice, because they're actually going out there and performing each night. Whereas when it comes to Sugar and Spice, like they do their TikTok videos, and that is a really big challenge in itself. That's a skill in itself, but it's different to what Drag Race tests you on. I mean, they did have that TikTok-esque challenge in All Star 7, and I think the twins would have absolutely nailed that one, to come up with like a TikTok dance or a TikTok trend. I think they would have smashed that out of the park. So if they incorporate more of that in the Drag Race challenges, then I think it would suit a lot of these TikTok or social media queens. But when it comes to the challenges that they did have, I think Sugar and Spice kind of floundered. Like they couldn't lip sync, they couldn't really design much in the design challenges. They had a very specific look that they didn't really want to go beyond and explore beyond, so they lacked the versatility really. I mean, I think the best thing that came out of it was more people getting exposed to them and helping them build their platform and their brand, but in terms of being Drag Race contenders, I don't think they were. the strongest contenders, obviously, of the season, but also of who they could have been potentially had they allowed themselves to grow and mature as drag queens and actually started performing, you know, live, you know, in clubs and that, to really get that experience. But since we are on the topic of Sugar specifically, I would say that between Sugar and Spice, the right queen stayed. Like, the right queen women, you know, we had the lip sync with the two of them, which is what the producers were frothing at the mouth for, clearly. Okay, that's what they wanted from the beginning. And honestly, I'm glad that Spice ended up staying over, because I do think of the two, even though they do have like really strong, distinct brands, Spice's brand and also her talent, like, you can tell that she's the one that has a little bit more of the imagination, that has a little bit more of the flair for, you know, coming up with these new ideas, and is a little bit more of the leader. So I think it made sense for Spice to stay, but ultimately both of them would have benefited from a little bit more time and maturation in the field. And then next up we have Aura Mayari. You know, she was good. Yeah, she was good. Didn't really stand out to me personally, if I'm being honest. The major thing that I remember about her is when she was like, oh, I'm the trade of the season, and I was like, no. No, you are not, because that is Anitra. Never say you are the trade of the season. Stop saying that. Stop saying that, because my automatic reaction is to choose someone else, anyone else, okay? I didn't even have to think real hard about it, because as soon as I saw Anitra, I was like, oh. 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 But listen, Aura, bless Aura, she was really, really good. But I don't think she really stood out, especially not in this Sasha Colby meet and greet. She stood no chance. But she did have some pretty good standout looks, which we'll dive into in the look section. And then next we have Jax. Now, Jax is an example of a queen that, you know, really stood out for being great at one particular thing, but not so good at some of the other things that Drag Race tests you on. So when it comes to Jax, I would say that she was one of the best performers, hands down. Hands down. Her little trick with the skipping rope with her hair in the talent show, oh, mwah. Absolutely iconic, okay? But, you know, with each lip sync that she did, each performance that she gave it 110%. But when it came to like everything else, like, I didn't think she was particularly funny. I didn't think her personality really shone, and that might be, you know, camera shyness, or who knows, like, you're on a reality TV show all of a sudden, and, you know, you don't even know how you're going to react, even though you think you know. But overall, I would say that Jax, her personality just wasn't strong enough. Really, it was just a shame that we didn't get to see the fierceness and the courage and the talent that we got to see when she was performing on stage across the board. Like, she didn't really give it to us in the acting challenges, she didn't really give it to us in the design challenges. I wasn't a fan of a lot of her looks, so like, these other elements were lacking, but that one element, the performance element, was killing every single time. It was a joy to watch her on stage, and yeah, I think she gave it her all on that aspect for sure. And also, another thing to note about Jax is she was, of course, finally eliminated after lip syncing against Anitra. Anitra, who chose to lip sync against her instead of Spice. Because she was like, that would be too easy. Like, that wouldn't be fair on Spice. That was such a baller move. Oh, we will talk about Anitra, man. That was such a baller move for her to choose Jax, even though she knew Jax can perform. She knew Jax can put on a show, and she was like, challenge accepted. And honestly, iconic. Honestly, a legend. Like, I have so much respect for Anitra for doing that. Me personally, I wouldn't have done that. I would have sent Spice home. I would like, are you kidding? 200 grand. I would have sent Spice home for sure. But, you know, props to Anitra for pulling that move. And because, of course, she stayed behind, she put her money where her mouth was for sure. And then next we have Spice herself. And like I already said, I think, you know, Spice was the stronger drag queen, especially for Drag Race, between her and her sister. But I think overall, they just needed to cook a little bit longer. You know, they needed to work on the other aspects of their drag, you know, and their drag identities in order to really stand out, especially amongst like seasoned queens. And also the little trots, like the trotting, they just didn't have versatility, basically. I feel like there is a big difference between being able to make short form content on TikTok, on social media, versus being able to entertain for a longer longer period of time. And I think that's what both of the queens were lacking, is the ability to really entertain. And when you're entertaining, and especially if you're doing it over, you know, weeks and weeks and weeks, you really do need to switch it up a lot more. You really need to play around with things, see what works, see what doesn't. And when it comes to the girls, they don't seem to have, you know, that ability to switch things up. And maybe it also comes from the lack of, you know, live performance experience, where in a live performance, if something isn't working, you'll know. Like, you'll know. Like, for me, you know, for instance, as a, you know, YouTuber, hi, I'm protected by the screen here. If you guys don't like this video and you're scowling at the screen, I can't see you. So either way, this video, this show is what you're getting, okay? And that's the same thing with the girls. Like, you know, they're trotting along and they're seeing the likes and they're seeing the comments from people who do like it. But when it comes to a live performance, they're not able to see the negative reactions in the same way that some of the other queens are. So these other queens learn to switch things up when something isn't working, but these girls haven't learned how to do that, and it shows. Okay, so hang on guys, wait. I'm so sorry. I think I've missed a couple of queens. Amethyst and Robin Fierce. I missed them out. I'm so sorry. They were before Aura Mayari. And I don't want to say this, but I kind of have to. I think I skipped them for a reason. Very forgettable. I'm so sorry. But listen, between Amethyst and Robin stands out to me the most because, first of all, she had one of my favorite entrance looks of all time. That all brown leather entrance look that she had. Oh my gosh, she was stunning. Robin was one of the most gorgeous queens to ever grace Drag Race, okay? She was absolutely stunning. Her looks were fabulous, and I am sad that we didn't get a chance to see more of her on this season. But yeah, she was definitely a looks queen, and she definitely delivered on that front. It's just a shame that she didn't really stand out in many of the other, you know, challenges on the show. When it comes to Amethyst, like I said, I kept getting her confused with Princess Poppy, so she didn't really stand out to me either, unfortunately. I'm sorry girls. Okay, I forgot about you guys. Moving on. Now we're back after Spice. We have Malaysia Baby Doll Fox. Yeah, and she ended up winning Miss Congeniality, so huge congratulations to her. And I really liked Malaysia's entrance look as well. That like orange dress with like the fox ears, I thought that was absolutely stunning. One of my favorites. So yeah, that's what really stood out to me from her. She had a couple of pretty good performances in some of the acting challenges, but again, she just felt like a very sort of safe queen. She delivered some really good looks on the runway for sure, and you could tell that she was from like that kind of old era of drag, very pageant like, which I really love. I love the grandiose nature of Malaysia's drag. Like, I love how everything just feels so dramatic and feels so custom and just unapologetically drag queen-esque. I love that about Malaysia's drag aesthetic. But you know, as a persona on this show, I don't think she stood out, you know, as much as she could have. I think the biggest standout moment for her, unfortunately, was when she had that moment with Mistress where they were fighting over the rock music or the country music or the R&B music or whatever for the old lady challenge. Yeah, that drama was kind of like the moment that you got her time in the sun, and that was like the worst moment to have that. So typical Drag Race producers, okay, creating drama. But yeah, Malaysia was really upset about how the other team had, you know, treated her team and just kind of claimed, was it rock that they had claimed? Because I thought it'd be funny to be, you know, old ladies doing rock. And the other team was a bit pissy. Like, the other team was a bit bratty, honestly. And I get why Malaysia would get upset, you know, if they pushed it a little too far. So I did feel bad for her in that moment, and I'm glad that she did win Best Congeniality. I don't know if she was like the most congenial, but she was certainly one of the most sensitive, so maybe those two things are the same. I don't know. Like, I don't know who else I would give most congenial to. Maybe Anitra, maybe Robin, yeah, I don't know congenial to. But you know, Malaysia is as good as any other queen, so yeah, let's give it to her. Okay, so next up we have Selena S Titties. She was fun. She was one of my favorites, one of the standouts of the season. Not necessarily because of her performance, you know, in the challenges, and certainly not because of her runways. Her runways were interesting. Okay, and listen, I think Bianca Del Rio said it the best. It was like a taste issue for me. Like, it was like I didn't really like her taste level. She just didn't have the fashion gene. Like, she had these cool and quirky ideas, but the execution was just like, this is not giving fashion. Like, this is not giving, it's not giving, I'm afraid. So yeah, I didn't really like Selena S Titties' like drag aesthetic. I do think her look in the reunion was stunning though. Like, that's what I wanted to see. I'm not saying every queen needed to wear a pretty dress, okay? Even though I did really like Malaysia's aesthetic, and especially with the dresses and everything, I'm not saying everyone has to do that. But Selena's looks, with that, like the metal look with the signs on it and the light bulb on her head, no. No. Overall, I would say her look certainly wasn't her strongest part, but the best part about Selena was her personality, was her attitude, okay? Like, I just think when she was on the show, we were having a ball. We were having a good time, and the moment that really stands out to me is when we had that iconic, incredible boss bitch lip sync with Marsha, and of course Anitra, and Selena was just like, woo! Like, during the recording, she's like, oh, gee Willy or something, whatever she says. But that is what stands out to me, like in her confessional when she reacted to that lip sync. So yeah, she added her like commentary to things. Like, she was really a vibe, you know, personality wise, even though she did have some interesting things to say about Ross Matthews behind the scenes. But even though, to be fair, I don't disagree with what she said about Ross Matthews. But anyway, I think Selena was a vibe, and she's definitely a queen that will stand out to me. And hopefully she hasn't burnt all of her bridges so she can make an appearance in All Stars with a whole new wardrobe, please. Okay, so now we're getting spicy, now we're getting juicy. We have the final queen before we get into the top four, and that was of course Miss Lucy LaDuca. Oh my god. Oh my days. Lucy was treated rotten and ruthless on this season. Lucy was dragged through the mud by these editors and producers. I can't believe what they did to this queen. It was peak. It was actually peak to watch. Like, I'm so sorry, but I didn't agree with the hell that she was put through this season. And listen, here's the thing. Was Lucy my favorite drag queen of the season? No, I think regardless of the poor edits that she got, I do think that her drag was not, you know, to my personal taste, which doesn't mean anything because of course everyone has their different opinion. And honestly, if we're talking freely, just between us girls, okay, if this is a safe space, I kind of agreed with Lux. I kind of agreed with Lux when she said that Lucy's drag was generic. I mean, listen, did you see what she wore to the finale? Like, what? She didn't seem like she had like an identity. At first it seemed like she did, but then like she just started to switch things up, and not in a way that made it clear that she was switching things up for the challenges, but in a way that felt like she genuinely just didn't know what direction to go in. Like, that there's a difference between switching it up because you want to show the judges, you know, versatility and originality, versus genuinely not knowing where to go with your drag. And I think, you know, Selena, for instance, had that issue, plus the taste issue. But when it comes to Lucy, it definitely felt that way as well. And I think that was shown with the finale look that she had, which felt like a challenge look, but that's what she chose to come to the finale in. And I felt like it was supposed to be a like, aha, I'm not generic. Like, look, I'm doing this freaky, weird, dark, twisted look at the finale. That just proves that I'm not generic and I am unique. And I'm just like, but this is very different to the vibe that we got from you for the vast majority of the catwalk. So like, who are you really? Who is Lucy Ladika really? So yeah, it was really weird just aesthetically going on that journey with her. But of course, aside from the aesthetic, we need to talk about the sort of Jan desperate edit that she got. I mean, it was unfortunate. To be fair though, they would have been able to give her that edit if the material wasn't there. Like, you know, obviously the song that is spotlighted this season is Blame It on the Edit. And I do think a lot of these queens like are blaming it on the edit. And they're like, oh, I was edited poorly and blah, blah, blah. Which I agree to some extent. But if you don't give them the material, then they can't edit you in that way. Like all these other queens that I said were forgettable and like didn't really have their time in the sun, they didn't give the producers the material, so they weren't edited in a certain way. They weren't edited at all because they got no screen time. When it comes to Lucy, she gave them plenty of material to edit her, you know, in that way, and so she came across as really desperate. I mean, she's the one that started counting the mini challenge wins. Like, you can't make it up. They didn't force you to say that. She is the one that started counting the mini challenge wins as part of her, like, you know, her chart. And I was just like, girl, like, no one told you to do that. No one has ever done that in the 15 years that Drag Race has been around. Like, that's just not a thing. Everyone knows that the mini challenges do not count. What are you talking about? Her and Lux, like, her and Lux were just hilarious with their like, oh yeah, I've won 76 challenges, including 58 mini challenges. Like, what are you actually talking about? Mistress Isabel Brooks said it best. Some of these queens were suffering from drag delusion. Okay, for sure. And Lucy was definitely one of them. And unfortunately, it just came across as really annoying and desperate, especially like every single week when, you know, after the judges made their decision, she'll be like, oh, but I deserve to win this one. Like, oh no, I should have won. I should have won this. I should have won that. Sis, according to you, you should have won every single week. Come on now. Come on now. But the thing is, the delusion is real because I'm seeing what you're giving and it's not giving what you think it's giving. So unfortunately the editors had a riot. They had a ball with her, and she came across as like, you know, really desperate, really poor. But at the same time, even with the questionable edit that she did get, people still managed to see that, like, the way that, you know, Mistress and Lux were treating her was just like beyond the pale. Like, there were times where they just went too far and it did feel like they were just kind of punching down on her, especially Lux. Like, she and Lux had that serious rivalry and sibling rivalry. They should start a podcast. It was a bit peak. So at that point, it was no longer fun. Like, it didn't feel like we were laughing together. It felt like everyone was ganging up on her. And so that was a bit of a shame, even if she did have her moments where it was like, girl, what are you talking about? But listen, even if Lucy was suffering from drag delusion, there were a couple of challenges where she did really stand out. I think the interview challenge where she had to interview, was it Charo? Or no, she was interviewing Frankie, I think Frankie Grande, Ariana Grande's brother, I think she got. She smashed that, like she knocked that out of the park, so that was a job well done. And also the Snatch Game of the season, she gave the best performance as Joan Rivers, like hands down. So yeah, she has those two, you know, solid wins, even though she didn't win the challenge for the interviews, because her look was so bad because she forgot Beyonce's baby bump. When she was arguing with Lux about that, by the way, I was literally going out of my mind. As someone who had access to the internet in that moment, seeing Lucy gaslight Lux, so she was like, no, I know exactly what Beyonce looked like in that moment and she didn't have a baby bump. And Lux is like, I know exactly what she looked like. It seared into my brain. She had a baby bump. And I was like, I was on google.com and I was like, yeah, Beyonce in fact had a baby bump. It drove me insane. I was like, Lucy, you are wrong. Stop being so wrong so loudly. Oh my god, guys, I was just about to dive into my favorite looks of the season, but once again I just realized I forgot another queen, and that was Marsha, who ended up leaving after Malaysia Baby Doll Fox. And I liked Marsha. I really did. I feel like she was a bit limited aesthetically. She's another one that I think, you know, whose drag needs to cook for a little bit longer to just kind of mature and fully understand like the kind kind of depth and breadth of where she can go with her style of drag, because her looks tended to be quite repetitive. They tended to look a bit cheap, but I feel like there's no problem with, you know, having a limited budget and trying to be flexible with it, so long as you have ingenuity, so long as you have like good ideas. And I think that's what Marsha lacked. Like, for instance, speaking of the Beyonce runway, like that was that was poor. That Beyonce look was just like listen, I know that people don't want to be spending 10k, 20k, 50k on looks, but that was like an interesting interpretation of a Beyonce look to me. So yeah, stuff like that where I was like, she wasn't really extending herself with her drag and with her look. I think the best look that she had on the runway was the like metallic catwalk, where they all had to dress like in metals, and that's where Selena STDs decided to come out as a signpost, questionably. But Marsha's look was pretty cool. Like, it was pretty steampunk Victorian. She looked like someone who just came out of a, you know, play on Broadway or something. So yeah, like that looked, you know, really good for her. That was where her minimalism kind of, you know, played really well with the assignment. But other than that, unfortunately, her looks were kind of underwhelming, especially the infamous tie-dye look. I mean, the tie-dye like, listen, I know what she was trying to do. She was trying to like interpret it in like a creative way, but it didn't quite make sense no matter how you spun it. So like, it was bad. It was really, really bad. So yeah, I think Marsha looked the best in the kind of metallic steampunk Victorian look that she had going on. And then also in the reunion, I think her reunion look was also really, really strong. But even though Marsha's looks weren't really her strong suit, her performances were. I think she was a really great performer, clearly classically trained. And I think my favorite challenge of hers was the first one, was the challenge show where she was, you know, dancing around with the picture of Ross Matthews. I think that was so clever, so well done. It was a perfect combination of her skills and her dance ability with her sense of humor, and giving us something that was just deliciously drag. So Marsha was a gift. Okay, I would love to see her come back in All Stars, hopefully with a bigger budget, so she can turn up the looks, because I think she has potential. Okay, so now that we have gone through all of the queens, hopefully, I think, now it's time to go through my favorite looks from season 15 of Drag Race per episode. Take a look. Okay guys, so after that short break, it's time to dive into the top 4 of season 15 of Drag Race. Starting us off with none other than Mistress Isabelle Brooks, aka MIB, aka the girl representing Houston, the girl representing big girls, okay, the girl just representing. I really liked MIB. I think she had a standout personality this season, definitely ended up being one of the more memorable queens of the season, and I think she fought hard to have that position. I think she fought hard to stand out in the Sasha Colby meet and greet, okay? And so good for her, you know, even though she was sassy, even though she was bitchy, even though she was shady, first of all, it seemed like she was a drag queen's drag queen, because all of the drag queens were like, yep, I love MIB, like this is how we're at, this is how we are in real life, like this is how we hang out. Now, when it came to MIB's performance in the finale, I think she did a pretty good job. I liked her song more than I liked her performance. She was a little bit off with the performance. I think, you know, choreography isn't her strong suit, and so she suffered in that regard. But the song was pretty catchy and it was pretty memorable. The whole idea of like drag delusion. She didn't really come up with that idea, but it's something that she's popularized on the show, and that's kind of all that matters, really. So yeah, I think it was really clever for her to lean into that and really give us, you know, a really cool performance. And yeah, it wasn't the strongest of the night, but I think she really gave it her all, and she certainly had one of the best looks of the night, that's for sure. Okay, so next up we have Luxe Noir London. Guys, come closer, come closer. Guys, come closer, come closer. This is my girl. Do not come for her. Do not even try it. Do not even try it. This is a Luxe loving zone, okay? I love Luxe Noir London. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's not just because she has London in her name. I promise you that. Luxe was a character. You see, some of these queens, they don't have the character. They don't have the charisma. That's the thing. They don't have the charisma. They don't have the uniqueness. Okay, Luxe has both in spades. I loved this queen so much. I loved how confident she was. And listen, you know, people like MIB kept saying that she was delusional. I don't think Luxe was delusional, because she backed it up almost every time. Like she would say she was great and then she would deliver. I don't think that's delusion. I don't think it's delusional if you're actually good. She even killed it in the comedy challenge, although she was with Lucy, who she wisely chose as a partner because she knew that Lucy was good at comedy. So like, my girl has been using her brain. Okay, she's been using her brain the entire time, and I've loved the way that she played the game. And speaking of playing the game, a lot of people accused her of kind of kissing up to Ru, brown nosing Ru, because she kept making Drag Race references, and she referenced a lot of Ru's previous looks on the catwalk. And I'm just gonna have to say this, okay? I don't think that Luxe was just doing that to be strategic. I think Luxe is genuinely, imagine this, genuinely a fan of Drag Race. Like, people don't just memorize these things because they feel like they have to memorize lines in order to look good. Like, no, I think it's just a case where she has genuinely watched Drag Race time and time again. She has her favorite queen, she has her favorite episodes, and so she's, you know, memorized these lines because they're a part of her vernacular. And when she went on there, she was able to show the world how much of a huge Drag Race fan that she is. Like, I truly think that that's it. Like, it's not all manipulation games and all sorts. And yeah, is it clever to demonstrate this in front of Mama Ru? Okay, when you're on her show, absolutely it is. Like, what, are you kidding me? If you genuinely love Drag Race, if you're constantly referring to it, you know, time and time again in your free time, why wouldn't you do it on the show itself? Like, if you love some of Ru's previous looks, why wouldn't you recreate them for the show itself in front of people? When people were critiquing her for this, I was like, are you stupid? If this series was about Beyonce, like if this was Beyonce's Drag Race, right, and you have like a challenge where you could perfectly incorporate one of Beyonce's previous looks, wouldn't you take that opportunity? Like, I'm so confused. Honestly, I think a lot of these people were upset that their favorite queens didn't think to do that, okay? If the twins had thought to do that, they wouldn't have been getting hate for it. That's the real tea, okay? But because Luxe decided to use what I felt was her genuine love for the show and for Ru to her advantage on the show and in front of Ru, people decided to hate her for it. And honestly, I wasn't having it. Honestly, I was not having it, because I was like, you would do the exact same thing if you thought of it and if you were actually a fan of the show. show. And even though I am new to the Drag Race fandom, I will say I have become aware, unfortunately, of some troublesome patterns in the fandom where people tend to target people like Luxe, okay, drag queens of color, and larger drag queens like MIB unfairly. And I think that is a horrible trait to have in the fandom. It's not in the spirit of drag or Drag Race. And so yeah, I wish that this sort of thing would go. It seems to be in every single fandom these days. I'm so tired. Imagine how tired I am after coming from the Marvel's trailer and oh my god. Imagine how tired I am. Now, like I said, I do think that Luxe took it a bit too far with her rivalry with Lucy LaDuca. But to be fair, like, Lucy was giving it just as bad as she got it as well. I think the one standout moment where it became a bit unfair and a bit uneven was when Luxe had the dissertation. When Ru asked the question of like, who do you think should go home? Luxe was like going around or going across the line being like, oh yeah, I think she's great because of this, I think she's great because of that, and then she got to Lucy and she was like, yeah, and I think she's generic and she should go home. I think that was peak, okay? But I would say that for the most part they were kind of bickering among each other, so like it was a rivalry that they were both partaking in, so I don't think it was just for the fans to like particularly single out Luxe and like attack her. And I think it was also because of Luxe's self-confidence that made her a target. You know, some people just don't like it when you're too self-confident. They like it when you're self-deprecating. They like it when you're humble or when you know, are a bit insecure. Like they find it easier to relate to you when you have insecurities. But with someone like Luxe, who seems so self-assured and so confident, it became difficult for some people to relate to her, and so they started to attack her, especially when she had that rivalry with Lucy. And I think that's a shame because she was literally just playing the game. She was there having the time of her life. If you could feel the love and the genuine admiration that she had for Ru, and you could see the pride that Ru had for Luxe, for the fact that, you know, well, largely speaking, the world has progressed to the point where you can have someone like Luxe who has a supporting family, who is proud and self-assured. Ru was so happy to see that, you can tell. So yeah, I really hated how people, you know, treated Luxe despite the joy and the genuine kind of positivity that she brought to the show, and certainly the drama. She was at the center of all the dramatic moments of the season, as we saw in the reunion. Like, how can you hate her for that? She gave you a show. You guys want a show more than anything, and she gave it to you. And she also gave us one of the best design challenge looks ever in all of Drag Race history, with that House of Visage look that she came up. Please, that look was incredible. Now, unfortunately, she kind of flopped with that second design challenge where she had to give that teacher a drag makeover. Yeah, that was poor. That was bad. That was really, I couldn't believe how bad that was, especially coming from a fan of Drag Race like Luxe. Like, you should know that you need to make the drag resemblance really clear when it comes to those kind of drag family challenges. But she really flopped on that one, and I was kind of disappointed. I was really disappointed, actually. But thankfully, she made up for it with the final challenge where she was, you know, in the music video, and she absolutely killed it. Now, when it came to Luxe in the finale, first of all, I do agree with everyone on Twitter that it was weird that Luxe was wearing pink when everyone else, all the other three girls were wearing red. That was a bit bizarre. It felt like they agreed to do that in like a group chat and then left her out of it, which was kind of peak. Or maybe she purposely wore pink to stand out, I don't know. But yeah, it was a bit odd that she was wearing a completely different color. I feel like her look was really beautiful and she looked stunning in it, but it needed a bit more va-va-voom. Like, it needed more feathers, it needed more volume and like wow factor, especially going up against those other queens. Like, it looked a little bit plain in comparison. But otherwise, when it came to her performance performance during the finale. I thought she was really good. She didn't have one of the strongest ones on stage, but I did think that she gave some very pageant-esque answers to RuPaul's questions, which was really clever. Again, she was playing the game, you know, even during the live finale. So when RuPaul was asking her the questions, it felt like her answers were quite rehearsed and very well thought out. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because like I said, I think, you know, the pageant world is another side of, you know, the drag community. And so she clearly tapped into that for this, you know, a live finale. And I think it was beneficial, you know, unlike Anitra, who gave like, you know, short, quick answers. We'll talk about Anitra in a second, okay? Don't even worry about it. But Anitra gave some like short, kind of sassy, kind of quippy answers, whereas Lux's answers felt very thought out and very diplomatic and like, you know, Miss Universe-esque. So yeah, I think she did a pretty good job on that front. It's just a shame that her performance didn't really stand up against the performing powerhouses of Anitra and Sasha. Speaking of Anitra, guys, speaking of my favorite drag queen of season 15, yes, that's right, Anitra was my favorite of the season, and a star is born, honestly. A star is born from the very first episode where she was walking that dog. Listen, Anitra was pretty much the only queen that had a signature this season, other than Lucy's like Let Loose, which became like huge out of nowhere, and then Sasha had the neck crack, but that wasn't really like as iconic as the duck, as the walking of the duck. And then you had Lux, who had the like gag them a bit. That was also kind of iconic. But in terms of like the performance, in terms of like, you know, something that's instantly recognizable, I think that the duck walking was pretty iconic. And that was from her first episode. That was from the talent show. That talent show performance was just incredible. It was so bombastic. Like, what? She knocked the competition out of the park. It was wild. So ever since then, I had my eye on Anitra, and unfortunately for a few episodes there in the beginning, it seemed like we lost her a little bit. She kind of faded into the background, but then in the latter half she re-emerged again, and she just kept killing it. She was so great in the Rusical. That moment that she had, that one scene where she was Mama Bacon, I can't remember what the character's name was, but she was phenomenal. You could really tell that she believed the words through her performance, and even though she wasn't actually singing, they had like actual professional singers, it felt like she was singing from the heart. And at such a crucial moment in history, in the, you know, LGBTQ history, with the banning of, you know, drag performances in Tennessee, you know, this Rusical felt so timely and so perfect for this specific landscape that we're in, this hellscape that we're in right now. Having Anitra's performance kind of ground the entire Rusical was just phenomenal. Like, she stood out to me. Even though Lucy gave a great performance from start to finish as the main character, I think Anitra actually ended up being the scene stealer. And so I completely agreed with her winning that challenge, because that little moment just brought it all together, and just like, oh, it was perfect. Listen, for me, when it comes to the Sasha Anitra situation, and here I am digging myself into an even deeper hole. But the thing with Anitra is that when she won a challenge, she clearly won that challenge. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when she won a challenge, it was like, oh yeah, she was 100% the winner for sure. Whereas when it came to Sasha, there were so many cases where she won the challenge, but like, did she? Like, for instance, the interview challenge, I feel like Lux should have won that day. Even though Lucy gave the best interview, hands down, for sure, but because Lucy fumbled the bag with her look, I think it was between Sasha and Lux, and between them, Lux had given the better interview on the the little golf cart where she literally just went, you know, wild with that other drag queen. So to me, like, it was another case of them handing Sasha a win because she was Sasha Colby. And yeah, her Beyonce look was sick, but I think Lux's look was nicer. To be fair, for me, the Bob Mackie homage was better because it was an homage to both Beyonce and to RuPaul, like thinking with brain, whatever. Whereas Sasha was able to recreate the Beyonce look because she, you know, could look like Beyonce. Like, to me, whatever. And then there was the other challenge where I think Lux should have won instead of Sasha. It was the ball. It was when they had to create these, you know, various looks for the ball, and the final look was like the crystal look that Sasha ended up winning. And I think that was a bit of a shambles. I think that was a disaster. They just gave her the win. It frustrated the hell out of me because when it came to the looks that were designed, you know, by the queens, you know, on that day, I think Anitra had the best look, hands down. Her dress was magnificent. Like, her dress did not even look like it was designed by her on the day. So she absolutely should have won based on that. But her other two looks were kind of like, so I get why she didn't win. Like, I really did not like her second look. That kind of candy look was not good. But then the second best would have been Lux, because Lux's crystal look, where she looked like a crystal fairy, a crystal angel, I don't know how she didn't win that. Like, to me, it was like, oh, and all three of her looks were strong. I like the hair look was good. The first Drag Race, you know, the homage to Drag Race was excellent. Like, I genuinely was so bamboozled as to how she did not win. Whereas you had Sasha, who's third, this isn't even about Sasha now, but whatever. Her third look, to me, was just so discombobulated and so like a mess. I do not understand how they were complimenting her and saying that it's one of the best designed looks. I was like, guys, are you seeing the same look I'm seeing? Because that is not the best look on this runway. Please. But they were like, oh, it's so beautiful, Sasha, it's so amazing. It looks shambolic to me, whatever. Anyway. And then she had the weed look for like the bag ball, which I think was really, really clever. That was the strongest look that she came out with. But her first one as the homage to Drag Race was like, and then the third one was like bad. So genuinely, it should have been Lux. It should have been Lux that won that one. Sis like took at least 2 wins from Lux, okay? Just because she was Sasha Colby. Oh, I remember what my point was. My point was when Anitra won her challenges, it was like clear that she won. Whereas when Sasha won, it was like there were so many occasions where honestly, did she really win? They clearly gave it to her because she was Sasha Colby. Now, some other standout moments with Anitra were of course the lip syncs. She gave us some of the most iconic lip sync moments in all of Drag Race history, hands down, no questions asked. That boss bitch lip sync with Marsha. If I told you the number of times that I have watched, guys, it was so good. When she went, meow, and like I said, Selena STD saying Free Willy, like that is stuck in my mind, okay? Like it was so iconic. And to be fair to Sasha, you know, Anitra's lip sync with Sasha to the Fifth Harmony song was also just incredible. Like that, to me, those were 2 of the best lip syncs that we have seen in years. It was so good. It was so excellent, okay? So again, Anitra just delivered, honestly, time and time again. She was my favorite drag queen. I'm so sorry. And so now we must fast forward over to the season finale, where Anitra ends up being the runner-up. First of all, to talk about her look, I think her look was good. I don't think it was spectacular. My favorite Anitra look was in episode 14, where she had the blue dress and the white wig. Oh my god. And it was so funny because that was a music video episode where she was watching Sasha and she was like, oh my god, am I a lesbian? And I was like, sis, we're all asking the same question but not about the same queen. But yeah, I loved Anitra's blue getup. I wish that had been her finale look, honestly. But in terms of her actual finale look, it was pretty good, but it wasn't her strongest of the season by far. And in terms of her performance, first of all, I loved her look during the performance, the sort of Lotus-inspired getup. But also she just killed her performance on stage. Like she did, you could tell that she was in her element. You could tell that she was doing what she loves to do, just like Sasha, to be fair, which we'll talk about in a second. But she absolutely killed it and was absolutely one of the best performers that night. So she, 100% deserved to be the runner up. And when it came to the final lip sync, how do I say this without sounding crazy? I mean, I'm already here. I'm already sounding crazy, guys. I think she should have won. Based off of the final lip sync, and also based off of the whole season. I don't want people to think that I'm a Sasha hater, is the thing. Like, I really am not. We'll talk about Sasha in a second, but I really am not, okay? It's just that to me, if not for the power of the Sasha Colby name, Anitra would have snuck in there and won, and she absolutely would have deserved it. Because to me, first of all, can we talk about the final lip sync? That song choice was so horrendous. It was so bad, especially for a season that, to be fair, became known for some pretty iconic lip syncs, all of which included Anitra, mind you. But considering how iconic some of these lip syncs were, the fact that they decided to cap it off with this horrible lip sync song choice was just like baffling to me. Like, I don't understand. Did they run out of budget? Did they use all of the money on the Lollapalooza and now they didn't have any, money for a good song for the finale? Like, I don't know. But this is supposed to be aired by MTV. Like, what? Surely MTV has a better library than this. I was absolutely shook by the song choice for the finale lip sync. Like, I don't think it benefited either queen. There are some instances where the producers play around and they'll choose a lip sync song that benefits one queen over the other. The kind of riggery that we sometimes see on Drag Race. But here, like, it didn't benefit either of them. It was a dumb choice for both of them. I genuinely just did not. I couldn't believe the song choice that they chose for this finale. But listen, regardless of the song choice, I personally, and I know I'm in the minority, but I personally felt like Anitra gave the better performance for the lip sync. I felt like she was actually performing and dancing and really connecting to the song, whereas Sasha got a little bit lost in some of the tricks, like her, doing her costume changes and the reveals and that. I felt like it was more about the reveals than her actually connecting to the music. And I think people were freaking out because it's Sasha Colby and she's, getting all naked and sexy and everything. But I don't think it really fits with the song. Again, horrible song choice. And so, like, I was just like, Anitra's out here, dancing and connecting to the music, but it doesn't matter because this is the Sasha Colby show. And in the end, Sasha Colby ended up being crowned the winner of Drag Race season 15. Now, as I said, I'm not a Sasha hater, guys. I really became a big fan of Sasha during the show. I think she does have that star quality. I mean, this is someone who has been doing drag for a really long time and has clearly harnessed her skills and her abilities, and she has that star quality on the stage. She knows how to move her body. She knows how to connect to songs when she's doing lip syncs. Like, there's no doubt about it. There was a reason why everyone was so afraid of Anitra and Sasha. Like, they didn't want to go up against them during the Lollapalooza. Like, and there's a reason for that, because they're such strong performers. And I think, had the finale lip sync been the lip sync that we got with them in the Fifth Harmony song, that would have been like incredible, right? Like, I think that would have shaken up the world, and it would have been genuinely difficult to choose who would have won that. But as it stood, we had the like dead song, horrible song choice, and I don't think that Sasha gave her best performance of the show or even of the night during the lip sync, because I think she gave a phenomenal performance in her like actual single performance. performance, the prepared one where she was like the snake or the mermaid or something, and then she had her plaits and she was flicking them around in the classic Sasha move, and she was snapping her head like that. That was really sick. That whole choreographed dance was incredible. I just don't think that the lip sync was the best performance that she gave, like I said, of the season or even of the night. But even though Anitra was my favorite queen of season 15, I do think that Sasha showed a lot of versatility as a drag queen throughout the season, and I think that's really admirable, especially because she already has the name. Like, she already has a huge reputation behind her. She could have been complacent and she could have just done her thing, but instead she consistently stepped out of her arena and really showed us some versatility in what she's able to do. She chose parts that weren't, you know, expected of her, like during the musical where she played that man. Like, it was really interesting to see her step outside of the box. You know, she had certain looks that were really shocking, like the tie-dye look, but then you also had some looks that felt really classically Sasha, like the ripped up jean look, the denim look, which was one of my favorites of the season, as you would have seen from the little slideshow. So yeah, I do think that Sasha was a phenomenal queen in season 15. Okay, do not get me wrong. Okay, it's just that I want to be a contrarian. I'm kidding. I don't want to be a contrarian. I just genuinely believe that Drag Race is better when all of the queens, or at least half of the queens, feel like they could potentially win the season. But when you have like a clear front runner, it's no fun. Like, it's and speaking of the finale, I do think that Sasha had the best look of the night with her red My Fair Lady inspired look that's supposed to pay homage to, I think, a John Galliano look from the runway from a few years back. But yeah, she looked absolutely incredible in the look, and I also love how she sold it on the runway. Like, it was just, that to me was a mothering moment. Like, that to me was like, okay, this is a clear Sasha Colby win right here. But anywho guys, we have reached the end of season 15 of RuPaul's Drag Race. It has been a long one. Okay, there were a lot of queens, but I think overall I just had such an amazing time watching this series week after week. Having something to look forward to was great, and I'm really gonna miss the show, at least until a couple of weeks from now when All Stars season 8 starts. Because yes, Drag Race is a machine that just keeps on chugging along, so we won't have to wait very long until RuPaul is back at it again with the 8th season of All Stars. And depending on how you guys respond to this review, I may review All Stars 8 as well. But in the meantime guys, now that I told you guys my thoughts on Drag Race season 15, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of this season of the show down in the comments below. Be nice, I'm new to this. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.